So now that it's been a solid, I guess, 4 weeks, because we haven't played yet, but 4 weeks for everybody else, let's reassess everything here for the Bengals, right? So let's go through this schedule and see where we're at when it comes to games that we can win, games we might lose, whatever, right? Starting off right away, if everything goes correctly, we're going to be able to get Joe back week 14, week 15. That's going to give us a win versus the Bills, because once Joe comes back, I'm not scared of the Bills. This was a game I thought was going to be very tough going into this whole situation. Not as tough anymore, as they just look so freaking bad right now. And I think, honestly, the Ravens are only going to get worse throughout the season at this point. I think we'll beat the Dolphins, we'll beat the Cardinals, and we'll beat the Brownies. So I think, again, as long as everything works out, Joe Burrow coming back, these all are going to be wins. Thanksgiving. By this point in Thanksgiving, the Ravens actually might lose half their team. And I don't know what the whole Lamar Jackson angle is going to be, whether he's going to quit on the team again or whatever happens there. But let's start off at the very beginning, okay? We got to win tonight. Obviously, that's just kind of simple, simplistic, easy concept to go with. I don't think we're going to beat the Lions. I think the Lions are going to kill us, personally. And that's me being very optimistic. But the Lions are just such a good team right now. It's really hard for anyone in the NFL to stop them at this point, even the Eagles. I think we could beat the Packers. And I know that's crazy to say, but if you watch them last night versus the Dallas Cowboys, first off, their defense might be one of the worst in the league now, which makes no sense at all because they just got Micah Parsons, but their defense cannot stop a nosebleed. Their offensive line is struggling greatly. Now, they're coming off a bye week. They have a bye week, week 5. Next week, their bye week. Zach Tom, if he is back for this game, it's going to be a drastically different game. Because if he's not back and he cannot come back for this Bengals game, Trey Hendrickson should be able to eat. And with that being said, we're also hopefully going to see a return by this point of Shamar Stewart. So I think this Packers game is a very winnable game across the board. And yeah, let's go ahead and go. Steelers game, I think we can win win in Cincinnati. In Pittsburgh, it's going to be very difficult, but in Cincinnati, obviously 100% a chance. Jets and Bears, I think we could easily beat them. I'll say easily. Okay, listen, let me not say easily. I think we definitely could beat them. We'll probably lose to Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. And let's say we did lose on Thanksgiving to the Ravens, because at the end of the day, it's still Jake Browning at quarterback at that point. Even if, it's going to be one of those games where it's like back and forth, low scoring, because at that point they might lose half their team, whatever. Okay, I think we could beat the Patriots. So that puts us at 13-4. Now that's unrealistic with Jake Browning. I don't think 13-4 is the most realistic prediction. So let's kind of, pull back a little bit, okay? Tonight's game versus the Broncos, again, tough game. Let's say we lose that game. And keep in mind, if we take away the Joe Burrow wins, right? By the time Joe Burrow comes back, we need to at least be 8-5. At least 8-5, at least somewhat, decently record-wise, or else he just won't come back and we'll just, kind of go on throughout the season with that. But again, we're looking at a week 14 beyond that Joe Burrow would be coming back. So, I just realized we would be 7-5 with this right here. So, worst case scenario, we lose to the Steelers twice. It is what it is, right? That's worst case scenario. And moving forward, 6-6 could definitely be a record we have. Could also lose to the Packers, which would be 5-7. And again, if Joe comes back at that point, we would be 10-7 if we win out, which again would be in theory a playoff team. But even with that being said, I think we could definitely beat the Patriots, beat the Bears, beat the Jets. Yeah, I mean, again, this is like worst case scenario, you would say, right? Lose tonight, lose the Lions, lose the Packers, lose to the Steelers. We beat these teams, then we lose to the Ravens. We lose to the Steelers twice, and then obviously Joe comes back. And if Joe comes back at that point, I think we could easily win these games with Joe Burrow at quarterback. That's 10-7. Now, obviously, the rest of the AFC North will also dictate a lot of things, right? So the Ravens, for example, they play the Texans this week. I think the Texans defense is going to take care of them very, very nicely. Rams will probably beat them too. Rams are also another team that's really, really good right now. Texans are not really good right now, but their defense is good enough to destroy that Lamar Jackson offense. Then the Ravens get a bye week. They play the Bears. I think they'll beat the Bears. I think they'll beat the Dolphins, beat the Vikings. Ravens are a team where when they get hot, and they start going on a run. But I could see Cleveland beating them in the second go-around, especially, again, depending on how much injuries happen at that point. Like, injuries, again, as they pile up, they're going to be really, really tough to deal with. I think they'll beat the Steelers there. Let's say lose to the Steelers second time. I think they're going to lose to the Packers. And I think they'll beat the Patriots. And then let's say they beat the Jets. That's an 8-9 record. This is why, again, we say it all the time for Bengals fans here. It's really hard to start the season off when you're like 0-3 or 1-3 or whatever, right? Because what happens is a game here and there that you lose moving forward really can dictate how the season ends. So that's kind of how I look at it from the outside. Obviously, going into the season, I thought they were going to be like 13-4, 12-5. Is there a chance that they, win one of these games? I said that they were going to lose. Absolutely. Like, they could beat the Browns twice. It's not the most outrageous thing to say. But with their injuries and slowly starting to diminish, I don't know. Steelers are the biggest issue. They always confuse the heck out of me just because, again, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers will last the whole season. And they should have lost that Vikings game. They choked it in the end, but the Vikings ended up losing it themselves. And then for the Patriots game, that was 5 turnovers. It really was the Patriots losing that game. But this week they do play. Okay, they have a bye week next week, and then they play against the Brownies. I really think the Browns can win that game. The Browns beat the Packers. They play the Lions tough for at least a half. And if that Browns defense can get after Rodgers with that lack of an offensive line that they have there in Pittsburgh, I think there's a chance that could go sour very quickly. I think the Steelers will lose to the Packers. I think they're going to lose to the Colts. Colts look like a really good team. I think they'll lose to the Chargers. I think they'll beat the Bears. I think they're going to lose to the Bills. They'll beat the Dolphins. They'll lose to the Lions. Let's say actually let's say they split with the Brownies. That's a 9-8 record. Okay? I mean, again, now, I think I'm being very generous here. The Bears could definitely beat them. There's a possibility there. They could lose to the Ravens twice, And, again, that's going to dictate, I think, a playoff spot in the end if that does come down to it. For the Brownies, Vikings game, I think that the Brownies will lose that game. I know the Vikings obviously just, lost to Steelers, but I think they'll bounce back. This is also an international game. It's back-to-back international game for the Vikings. So the Vikings are going to be in somewhat of a better case of being, hey, we've been over there for a little bit of time. Maybe they'll get a little less jet-lagged. Dolphins game, I think the Brownies will win. I think the Patriots will beat the Browns. I think the Jets will beat the Browns. Raiders game, give me the Brownies. 49ers, I think, wins. I think they beat the Titans. I think the Bears beat them, and the Bills beat them. So that puts the Brownies at 6-11. That puts the AFC North right now at this right here. Listen, it's not the sexiest. It's really not, This is not the division I thought we were going to have going into this season. But this is a possibility. And I think this is a possibility with a very low, I'm trying to be as, I guess, negative as possible, as you could say, because this is with us losing to the Broncos, losing to the Lions, losing to the Packers, losing to the Steelers twice, okay? I don't think we're going to lose to the Steelers twice. I think we're going to win one of those 2 games. But I'm trying to look at the worst case scenario. And as long as when Joe comes back week 14, week 15, yeah, that's where we're kind of at. So, listen, there's definitely still a shot. And I think that a lot of people, obviously going into this season when Joe went down, you kind of think season's over. There's 0 chance that we can win the division. But it is what it is, right? And you have to play in where you're at right now. That's how you have to kind of do the whole thing here. So you have to kind of understand, okay, well, this is where the situation's at. This is where we're going to have to do moving forward. So let's talk about the Chargers, because this is obviously we win the division. That's awesome. But let's say, hypothetically speaking, something crazy happens. Let's talk about other wildcard team potentially. Commanders, I think they'll beat the Commanders. They're going to beat the Dolphins. I think the Colts could beat the Chargers there. Vikings, they'll win that game. I think they're going to win that game. Okay, the Chargers, low-key might go almost undefeated. Okay, not undefeated, but they're going to go 12-5, I feel like. So they're going to be division champions, I would assume. I mean, the Chiefs obviously are probably going to turn things around here, but let's see, how hard is the Chiefs' schedule? Regular season, Bills win. Broncos could beat that team. Yeah. That's 12-5 as well. Yeah, so that means one of those teams is going to be 5th seed. One of those teams is going to be first, second, and third seed, whatever. So I think overall-wise, we're going to see the AFC West take over at least one of the 5th seeds. Broncos could definitely do it too, although the Broncos don't look that great this season. So, for example, let's say the Eagles win that game. They beat the Jets. I think they'll beat the Giants. I could see the Cowboys winning that game. They just went toe-to-toe with the Packers and almost beat them. Tied them in the end. Broncos, I think the Strouds will eventually get going. So, give me the Strouds to beat the Broncos there. Commanders, at that point, Jaden Daniels is back. Raiders, I think they win. Packers, I think they lose. And then they beat that team. That puts them at a 9-8 record. So, would be right below us, obviously, at the end of the day. Who else? So, the Patriots I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. I don't think we have to worry about the Jets. I don't think we have to worry about them. Colts are a team that I think they are going to just win the division. So, I'm not really too scared of that across the board. Let's see. We got the Seahawks. I think they're going to win that game. Bam. Jaguars probably split with them. 49ers, they beat. Jags, they beat there. Texans, I think they beat there. Okay, so that's all good. And then Jaguars, it's another tough game, another weird team right now. But again, I don't think that they're going to really be a playoff team at this moment in time. Maybe in the future. They definitely look like a team that future-wise can start really getting going. But 6-11, I know. Jaguars fans, you probably hate me. Anyway, Texans are another team that, again, you saw it winning some of these games, saw it really piling up some wins here. But I'm going to have them go 8-9. So, again, like I said, I'm trying to fill these games in to kind of get a general gist of where we're at, right? Patriots are not a team that you're probably worrying about the wild card. Could be, but you saw it losing some of these other games we'll talk about here. Again, just kind of throwing some games here. I think that they can actually win those games. Maybe wild card. Maybe they might be that sneaky team that kind of feel. No, actually, I think the Bills will beat them twice. I didn't realize they didn't play the Bills yet. That's going to be the tough one. 8-9 record. Okay. Jets are not a team that you're worried about for the wild card. Bills will probably beat them again, would be my assumption. They beat the Dolphins, they beat the Falcons. Again, some of these teams, their schedule, you kind of forget about how, not easy it is, obviously. But you forget about how, simplistic things could go, right? All right, so that's that. Yeah, so really right now, the teams we're competing with, if you think about it, is the Steelers. And again, I'm saying that in the aspect of, let's say, for example, we even did worst case scenario, right? And we lost to the Patriots. We'd actually be fighting for a wild card spot with them. But like if we lost to the Jets, for example, right? We're now actually 8 seed and knocked out of the playoffs, ironically enough. Because now you got the Broncos, you got the not Ravens. You got the Broncos, you got the Bengals, and you got the Steelers. Well, the Steelers won the division. Oh, you got the Jets. So if we lost to the Jets, see, that's why some of these games, like, that could come down to it. The Jets losing to the Jets would knock us out. The Broncos knock us out. We got to win tonight, right? We definitely got to win tonight. But my point is, and again, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you're in hopium. You're crazy. Come on, man. This is ridiculous. But at the end of the day, you got to look at things and think, yes, okay, at the end of the day, am I being a little bit extra hopeful? Yes, I am, right? Am I being a little delusional to a certain degree? Absolutely. But you got to start to break it down and think, wow, it's possible, right? And 90% of footballism or being a football fan is just hoping and praying for things that probably aren't realistically going to happen. But you hope they will. And when they do, it's an awesome fact. So that's kind of my mindset. Nonetheless, though, I'm looking at worst case scenario here, and I think we can go better than this. I really think, if I'm being honest here, I think we can split with the Steelers. And I think we can beat the Broncos tonight. I think we can split with the Steelers. We're going to lose the Lions, Packers, Ravens game here. And that's a 12-5 record. And, listen, at the end of the day, let us get hot at the end of the season when we have Joe Burrow back and he's 100% ready to go. The NFL just isn't ready. It's just not ready for us. Anyway, and again, like I said, my motto before, this is with us losing the next 2 games. So losing today and losing next week. And losing the week after. Excuse me. See, my brain. Let's say we lose the next 3 weeks in a row. It's not over yet. That's the thing that people need to realize. People say the season's over. If we lose the next 3 games in a row, there's still a possibility. There's still a chance. There's still a good chance, depending on, the rest of the games. So I think we need to just sit back, relax, chill a little bit, and realize it's a very winnable division this year. It's not over yet. And still a wild card potential spot, too, as well. But peace out.